CentOS installation or Linux installation. Now this is the fun part. Yes, that's where we are. We're gonna get our hands dirty. We're gonna do the installation of the Linux, the real work. So the first thing that we have to do is go to our browser, and if you don't know the exact link, you could just go to www.google.com. You guys know that, and just type that CentOS download. First link which says download CentIOS. Click on it. On this page you will have three different options. By the way, if you are going straight to the download page, which is right here, centos.org/download, which I had it already open on this tab, but anyway, since we are already on this page, we have three different options. Well, first option is DVD ISO image. Now this is the one that we will be clicking on and downloading the image. The second one is everything ISO. This image is about twice the size of the DVD ISO image. It has many different optional packages that might be needed for development purposes, that might be needed for other servers that required certain libraries and many other stuff. The third one we have is minimum ISO. This one probably does not have the GUI and other required tools that we need for this training, so we will skip that too. So we'll pick the first one. Once you click on it, you will get the complete list of all the DVDs links that we have, all the ISO images links. Remember, the latest version of CentOS is 7 and the update is 4. So 7.4 is the latest version of CentOS Linux operating system. It's the same version for Red Hat. Again, the only difference is Red Hat, you get the support, you get the patches and updates, whereas in CentOS you do not get all those updates and support, and plus CentOS is free. So we'll click the first link and it will ask you to save the file. Now in your case, it might ask you to where to save it, so you pick the folder where you want to save. Now I have already a download process going on, so if you click on this little icon here, depending on your browser, this is Firefox that I'm running. You click on it and you'll see right here I have the CentOS 7 x86-64 DVD ISO image that is already being downloaded. It will take 1 hour 56 minutes from this time on, and of course I will stop the recording here because I will wait for the download to finish. Okay, finally we have the CentOS Linux ISO image has been installed and has been downloaded actually, and I have downloaded it on my desktop. This is the full name of the ISO image. You could also check if it has completely downloaded by right clicking and going to properties, and you will see the size of the ISO image is 4.2 gigabyte, which seems about right. So now we will have to attach that ISO image to our virtual machine that we created. So let's start up the Oracle VirtualBox. And here we have this virtual machine that we created, and we're going to click on start. Now once we click on start, it should bring up a window for that virtual machine, and it will ask us to pick your operating system ISO image. So if it is a host D drive, which means you probably have inserted your CD or DVD as a hard copy and you have inserted to the D drive of your laptop, then you will pick that. But since we have the ISO image, we'll click on this little folder here to specify the location of our ISO image file, and of course I'll go to desktop. That's where I have it saved, and you will see here it says CentOS 7. This is the ISO image that we have downloaded. We'll select that and click on open. Once you click on open, we can click on start. And there you go. This is the first page you will see. Either it's Red Hat Linux or CentOS Linux or any type of Linux distribution, you should see this install first page. It will tell you that it will start the installation automatically in a few number of seconds, as you see at the bottom. You could click, you could hit enter to start the installation. I just clicked inside the window. This VirtualBox came up, which tells you that you have clicked the mouse inside the virtual machine to capture it. You could just click capture and then hit enter. You could close down this message, the annoying message that comes up on the top. Okay, this is showing that it is loading the ISO image to the virtual machine. Here you will see this message that says press escape to abort check. Now if you have a CD, sometimes what happened with the CD is you do get scratches on the CD, and sometimes it affects your installation. That's why it does the check. But now since we are doing through the ISO image, it's not possible to have any kind of scratches, of course. So what we will do here is we will hit escape to skip that check. The installer that installs, or the install wizard that install the Linux CentOS, that installer is called Anaconda. So it's starting that installer right now. Okay, so now we have a welcome screen here. So basically we have to go through this wizard one by one. So this welcome screen tells you to pick the language. Depending on your language, your preference, I'm gonna pick the English or the United States. Come down, there is a scroll bar on the right hand side, and then you could click on continue. The first option that you have is date and time, which is already selected for you, America's New York time zone. If you are in a different time zone, please select that time zone according to your country or city. Then the keyboard, it should come up with the default keyboard. Since we selected English, it should come up with the English keyboard. Then we have the software, the installation source. So give it a few minutes until we get that dependencies resolved. It says checking software dependencies. Please note that there will be a delay during the installation, and I will fast forward it so this way we don't lose any time. So there you go. So it came up with installation source. Installation source is the local media, which is our CentOS. Software selection, this is what you have to pick. That is going to tell you what kind of packages that you wanted to install. Now remember, let's say if you have a Windows machine, right, and in Windows machine there are sometimes that pre-installed packages come, and there are sometimes you have to install it afterwards. For example, let's say if you wanted to install Microsoft Office, you have to install it later on. It does not come with it. Just like that, this ISO image allows us to have the list of all the packages that we want to download. So we'll go over one by one. We'll leave the minimum install as is. Infrastructure server, if this is a server that's going to be doing like a bigger work like DNS, name server, or file server, this is what it's going to be working on. The infrastructure server tells you if you want to install the DNS server on it, if you're going to run any kind of email server, any FTP server, anything. So we will pick a couple of them, like a DNS server, because we want to cover a little bit about DNS in our training. We will pick the FTP server. So then we go to basic web server. We don't need to install any kind of web server tools. Server with GUI, this is where if you wanted to get a GUI with the server, you could pick the KDE, which is also a type of GUI. Then we have Genome Desktop, We'll pick the GNOME applications. There are some applications that you could use, like calculator and other type of applications that come with the operating system. So we'll pick that one. Internet application, we don't need email, chat, and video conferencing software. So these are all the different things that you could download. So we'll leave that as this up to here as a basic one. We'll go back up and click on Done. Now, if you see, the installation source is checking again, going back to our software media and checking whatever that we have selected, whether this source has those packages or not. So give it a few minutes. Once it's done checking the software dependencies, then we'll go to the next step, which is the installation destination and other network or host name. Okay, so once all the software selection is completed and the source installation source has been verified that it has all those packages that we have selected, then the next step is to move to the installation destination. The installation destination allows us to install our operating system with different partitions. What different partition means, think of as Windows. When you have sometimes in Windows you have C drive, D drive, or E drive. There are many different drives in Windows that you could create. Just like that, a simple disk, in this case 10 gig, we could partition that disk into different drives. And once we partition that disk into different drive, we could actually have a simple small partition to everyone. For this course and for this training, we will leave as automatically configure partitioning, and we will not configure it ourselves. So we'll just click on that disk. We'll select that which is already selected, and we'll click on Done. Then the next option we have is kdump. Now kdump is enabled. What is a kdump? Kdump is when Linux has this program that runs inside of it's called kernel. When kernel crashes, it creates a dump which has a log file which tells you what happened to it. So that's what it's enabling it, meaning when something goes wrong, it will spit out a log file that would tell you what happened to your operating system. The next step we have is the network and host name. When you select on that one, I want you to come down. Let's make this bigger. And here I have selected my first Linux VM. You could change this name as well. Remember, this host name is not the same name as we created for our VirtualBox. VirtualBox, which is a virtual machine, is different virtual machine name than the host name of this machine. So for this, we'll create my first Linux OS. Sorry, first Linux OS. Then you can click on apply. Then most likely you're gonna have this as turned off. So all I want you to do, this is where you actually define your network. So all I want you to do is click on. Once you click on, then it's gonna try to connect and get you an IP address, subnet mask, and gateway. If you are working in a corporate environment, then most of the time you will have a static IP, which is a dedicated IP, a gateway, and net mask, which is given to you guys by the networking team. You could take that information and then you could configure the network interface right here. You could go click on configure. Up a little, and here you'll see it has Ethernet. Leave that default and go to IPv4 setting, and you'll see here automatic DHCP. DHCP is basically if an IP assigned whenever a computer boots up, whichever the IP is available. If you wanted to hard code an IP address, so every time your computer boots up and the IP does not changes, then you drop down and click on manual. Then click on add and put an address, netmask, and gateway here, and then click on apply. But since we are going with DHCP, we'll pick that and apply. So for this one, in this case, we'll just cancel it. and we'll click on done. Security policy, you don't have to select any security policy. So now if you notice, we have picked the localization setting, we have picked the software setting, and we have picked the system setting. Once that is completed, come down and click on begin installation. Now as it's doing its installation, you'll see at the bottom it says creating disk label, and it will go through all the installation. While it's doing that, at the top it's giving you user setting. So root is like an administrator, a primary user of your computer, which is a very powerful account. You have to set the password for your root right here. So click on this option and pick a password. It is highly recommended that you pick a strong password so it cannot be guessed. And then click on done. Once that is done, this next thing is user creation. I would highly recommend you guys create a user, a first-time user for your own self. So let's click on create user. Full name, I'll put my name. And see, it automatically picked a username for me, which is my first name, initial, and my last name. Make this user administrator. If you want to make yourself as a super user, you can by clicking here. Requires a password to use the account, and you again pick a password. And then once done, click on done. Now if you notice, the user setting is completed. Root password has been picked, user account has been created. Now it's going through the package installation process. Now it could take anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes depending on the packages, the software that we picked during our software installation options. So I'm gonna leave that as it's running, and I will fast forward that during the video capture. So this way you would know exactly what are the packages that are being installed and when it's completed. Okay, the installation is completed, and now it's performing post-installation setup task. Some of the settings that we completed, which is like root password setup, account creation, that's where it's going through right now. Okay, so CentOS is now successfully installed and ready for you to use. Go ahead and reboot to start using it. So simply follow the prompt and click on reboot. Okay, the CentOS Linux 7 operating system is starting right now. So this is the license information you have to accept. That's going to be an initial setup, and then you click on finish configuration. Okay, so it's gonna come up with the login page. You could log in with your username, or you could just do not listed and log in as root. So we're gonna log in with our user. I'm gonna provide the password. Okay, so we are at this point where we have completed the Linux OS installation. So of course I'll say, if you have done this and you are at this point, congratulations everybody. You have done an amazing job, and this is your first Linux OS installation. So you should pat yourself in the back. Yay!